Welcome back to the Zero E Michigan podcast. I'm Carl Bloss, and my co-host is.
Larry Hudson.
So today we have with us Walter Schulze. And Walter and I crossed paths on this journey, if you will, of the Flying J pilot travel centers and the EVGo Ultium chargers that are part of that. And I since subscribed to Walter's YouTube channel, which is the Network Architect, and I'll put a link in the show notes. And he has done some extensive background information sharing sessions regarding these travel centers. And I think that's a super cool topic. So I wanted to bring him in. So, Walter, if you would please introduce yourself, we'll get the conversation started.
Glad to. Walter Schulze. I live in northern Charlotte, which is home of NASCAR. A lot of the teams call my hometown, which is Concord, North Carolina, home. The memorial for Dale Earnhardt is in Kannapolis, which is our sister city. Born and raised in the Midwest in the North Shore of Chicago, and married happily with two boys.
Great. Well, welcome to the show. So,
All right.
how did you get started with EVs? I looked at your early videos, and you were talking more about networking things on your channel. And then suddenly I started seeing EVs and a Cadillac Lyriq. So tell us how your EV journey.
Glad to, yeah. And as you say, the initial inception of the channel was really because I was doing technical certifications, and I just needed a place to brain dump my notes in order to study for some of these technical certifications, which are notoriously rigorous. And YouTube was a convenient place to store the videos because you don't have to worry about the storage. And so I was just making a bunch of private videos, and occasionally I would do technical videos, but no one really cares about tutorials for IPv6, I found. But I switched to doing EVs because my wife got a Tesla Model 3 long range 2019, and she didn't ask me. She just went and did it. Very independent woman. And so there it was in the garage. I wasn't really into EVs at all, and I was kind of curious about, what's this EV thing? It don't seem like a really good idea to have a car powered by a battery. I mean, that has disaster written all over it. But she seemed to like it. She would take it on road trips and didn't seem to have a problem. And occasionally, I'd be riding shotgun and going on road trips. And as time went on, I started to investigate the technology behind the electric vehicles and started to become intrigued. Became more on board with the whole concept of electric vehicles, Tesla in particular. The supercharger network really makes the road trip experience seamless. From there, we got a Volvo XC40 Recharge. I had a Hyundai Ioniq hybrid, and we moved on later to handing over the Hyundai Ioniq hybrid to my son, who was of driving age, and got a third car, which was a Cadillac Lyriq. So, yeah,
All right.
he went to school, and because schools require money, I had to sell the Ioniq hybrid in order to get the cash out of it, in order to pay for tuition. So right now we're an all-electric family.
Very cool. Very cool. Now,
All right.
why did you pick the Cadillac? Why GM products? I mean, they got started with the EV1 and that kind of, I don't want to say fizzled out, but yeah, I'm sure you know the whole EV1 story. And then there was this huge gap, and then suddenly along comes some compliance cars for California, and then comes the Bolt. And now we have the whole Ultium infrastructure of batteries. So what got you into the Cadillac? Was it the new battery architecture?
Uh, you would think that I did in-depth analysis of the technology in order to determine which was the best option, but that wasn't at all it. My wife's hip was hurting because the Tesla Model 3, you have one, Carl, is that correct?
I don't have a 3, I have a Y.
Okay. So the 3 is pretty low, and the seats are not overly comfortable. And she was complaining of hip pain on long trips. And we're starting to get up in age. And so she said, just get a list of cars that you think might be a good replacement for the Tesla Model 3. And I said, okay. And I was going down the list. She liked the seat comfort in the Volvo. So I was suggesting either a EX30 or a Polestar 2, which is very similar on the interior from the Volvo. And I wrote down Lyriq, but I knew that they were not really available And I gave her the list. There was about 12 cars on that list: Ioniq 5, EV6, um, one of the other Volvos, Tesla Model Y, maybe a used Model S, something like that. And her finger landed on the Lyriq, and I didn't say it out loud, but I said, good luck on that one. But we wandered into a Cadillac dealership on a Saturday morning about 9:30 in the morning on the way to the grocery store, and they had a test model on the lot in order to test drive, and she drove it and she liked it. And then I was getting ready for the other shoe to drop, where the salesperson was going to say, we don't have any, you can put your name on the list. And actually I heard you couldn't even put your name on the list at the time because there was so much demand. The list was completely sold out, but they had one sitting in the showroom and it had a sticker on it. And I said, well, is this one for sale? And she said, yeah, actually the person chose not to accept delivery of it last night, and we put it on the showroom floor, and the price was right. It was
Wow.
50, it was 58 and change with some options, bringing it up to 62. And we proceeded to do the paperwork. And while we were doing paperwork, two other people showed up trying to buy it out from underneath us. And very in-demand car. And we drove out of that showroom by 11 o'clock in the morning with the new Lyriq, and one of the
Nice.
two Lyriqs in all of Charlotte, from what I understand. So we were very fortunate to receive that car.
What a fantastic
Wow, man.
story.
What?
Yeah.
Right. That is great. And you have the most unique that your wife was the one that green pill you, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I've heard that actually a
when
lot from
the
other people.
Model 3. Yeah, that's super unique.
I've
Cool.
always heard that about motorcycles, right? They say that most Honda Goldwings are sold from the back seat because they're apparently super comfortable.
Okay.
But we are starting to hear that story more, which is great. We'd love to see more women involved in the whole EV movement, that it's not just a rich white guy thing. Um, but also just your trajectory is interesting because I'm an engineer and well, you're a technical person, but my approach was basically do all the research, build spreadsheets, which car has the most range for the price and charging infrastructure and that sort of thing. And that doesn't sound like your story at all.
Her
And
finger just landed on the Lyriq
yeah,
as she was going down the list. She just stopped at the Lyriq. She said, this one. That was it.
yeah. And here in Michigan, we also hear a lot where people are like, "Well, I'm a Ford family, and or we're a GM family, or we're a Chrysler family, Stellantis, and we're going to wait until whatever they bring out, that's what we're going to buy."
Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes these are folks that have family that work in the business or a part supplier, and they also get preferential deals, or they're just loyal to that brand. So anyway, that's fascinating to hear. That's not what I expected to hear, which is always fun. With the Tesla, I mean, you and your wife had experienced the supercharger network. I assume you said she went on some road trips, so you kind of knew how road trips work in a Tesla.
Yeah, so she primarily was the road tripper in the Tesla until what happened was we got the Volvo, and then the Tesla became my hand-me-down. So I inherited the Tesla. That was my primary vehicle. Then I started taking it on road trips also, and it was very easy. I mean, I just came from a Hertz where I was picking up a Tesla Model 3 for a business trip that I'm going on starting tomorrow. And there was someone there who was being forced into getting a Tesla against their will because the car they wanted didn't exist. It was a manager special or something. And actually, it's not like forced. It was just that was the only car that was available. And he's like, I don't know about that whole charging thing. So that person, I'll promise you, this time tomorrow is going to be sold on EVs,
Yeah,
because once you get into Tesla and you go on a road trip, all your fears. I don't
yeah.
know of any Tesla owner who has had buyer's remorse. It's a terrific car, terrific collection of technologies. The supercharger network is very customer focused. Super excited to have access to it starting in the spring of 2024.
Yeah. You should have given your Tesla referral code, by this time, 24 hours later, you might have 10,000
You can
referral
buy one
credits.
or two of them. That's right.
That's hilarious. So now migrating to charging the Volvo and the next step to your Lyriq, that's a little different because as we all know, the supercharger network is not open yet for others other than a few select locations that have the Magic Dock. So what's kind of the segue that got you into checking out the whole Flying J pilot charging stations?
Okay, so let me just back up quickly. The
Yeah.
distinction between the dream experience with the Tesla supercharger network, and then we purchased a Volvo. And the first trip we took was a Thanksgiving Day trip to my brother-in-law's on the beach, which required one charging stop. Utter nightmare. Total opposite from the Tesla supercharger. We pulled into one place and it was really expensive. Then we went to the next pin drop in the center console, and the place didn't even exist. It had actually picked up and moved to a different location, but the pin drop was still there. And all kinds of problems associated with the CCS network as first-time EV owners. That kind of intrigued me. And I, as a husband, I guess I tried to placate my wife's fears out of instinct. And so I started to do research on this whole EV infrastructure thing that was non-Tesla. I didn't realize how bad it was. And I became very intrigued and interested in the concept of EV road trips and non-Teslas. And I actually found it fun. You've mentioned before a term called Gamify,
Yes.
and I've never heard of that term
Oh
before you
yeah.
mentioned it. It's great fun for me to plan an EV road trip and have a primary stop, but also have a backup stop, and make sure that when you get to your primary stop, there's enough energy to get you to your backup spot if you need to. And in certain cases, I even have a tertiary stop just in case. And these road trips have really become a passion of mine. And I found it a great diversion to go on EV road trips and non-Teslas, as that whole gamify aspect plays out.
That's funny.
Tons of fun. But to answer your question, when we got the Lyriq, we already had a Tesla wall connector in the garage, so there was no need so when you purchase a Ultium car, you're presented with either $1,500 credit with Q Merit in order to have a EVSE installed in your home, or if you live in a multi-tenant dwelling, or you're thinking of moving soon, or you already have one, you could elect 2 years of free with EVGo. And so it made sense for me to go with the EVGo option. And I knew Pilot Flying J was supposed to be coming. And then after we got the Lyriq, I was looking into it and there was like no stations. I'm like, well, I guess a GM, threw this on the graveyard and it's not going to happen. I was really frustrated that was the case, that this whole Pilot Flying J was just not happening. And one day I was going through a spreadsheet from my state's Dieselgate fund disbursements, and there was 5 locations listed as pilot locations. I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe they didn't throw this on the trash heap. Maybe they're just pressing the pause button waiting for funding. And then I started to see reports of people saying, hey, there's chargers in the ground at this pilot. And I found 4 on PlugShare that were looking like they were getting ready to be complete. And then all on the same day, which was September 20th, they opened those 4 plus 4 more. They had 4 other sleeper sites out there. So they opened 8 sites all on the same day. And all of a sudden, this new network started growing really rapidly. We're now up to 18 sites that are open from September 20th to now. The target is 25 by December 31st. And by my reckoning, they're going to make that. And for me, what has really been a big boost is the fact that they're not only putting chargers in the ground, they're putting chargers in the ground at travel centers. And about a third of them have canopies and pull through. So it's like, wow, it's like I hit the jackpot. I got a 2 years of free charging at EVGo, which gives me access to all these sites for free. And, restrooms that are open 24/7. I don't know about you, but there's been many times I pulled into a Tesla supercharger and the adjoining facility is closed because I'm outside of business hours or something.
Yep.
No such concept at these. These are open 24/7, 365, and really been enjoying and really thrilled that this build out is going as fast as it is.
Yeah, obviously travel centers have all those things that travelers want, and they're not just truck stops anymore. So the one that I encountered was in near Perrysburg, Ohio, or just outside of Toledo, and it just so happened I was visiting friends in that area. And I thought, well, let me just swing by there and see what that looks like. And same thing, I was blown away. For those on the video version, that's the picture behind me. It's underneath the canopy. You can't actually see the canopy because it's cropped out of the picture, but it's a pull-through side. It was pulling my motorcycle trailer And EVGo, in my mind, did not have the best reputation in terms of reliability. The ones that I had encountered were in the Chicagoland area. There was one at this travel center right, in the Chicagoland area. It seems like it was always broken. And so I was not really impressed. There aren't any near me in West Michigan. But then I encountered this, and it's like, wow, this is all working. It's new equipment. There's a Denny's restaurant inside. The bathroom is clean. All the stuff that you would want from a travel center. And this whole
Great.
pull through, I avoided the Tesla supercharger, and I was willing to pay 55 cents per kilowatt hour because of that, at least on that trip. So I was totally blown away. And then, I ended up doing a video on that because I I said, this is the way this is the way charging at travel centers ought to be, right?
Plus the
And
350. Anyone with a
That's cool.
higher speed car,
yes,
like a Lucid, the EGMP cars, these are 350 dispensers. These are the big boys.
that's right. Right. And the other car that I encountered there was an F-150 Lightning. Now, they're limited to 150 kW, I believe. But what he was doing was the plug and charge. So I saw him pull in and just plug in and not fiddle with an app. So, looking into it with EVgo, it's like, oh, they have this whole Autocharge Plus, I believe they call it. And so the idea is that you register your vehicle once, and then the subsequent times when you plug it in, it it reads your VIN or however it identifies your vehicle, and it just starts charging as long as your account is still valid and has a form of payment. And it even works with the Tesla using the Tesla CCS adapter.
Cool.
So, yeah.
And if I can, it was kind of like I went into Oz. The first time I went to these locations, I had never been to a truck stop before, and I didn't even know if I was allowed as a car driver to actually walk in the place. And that sounds strange, but it's the truth. I went to visit the 4 sites that I mentioned prior to them opening, just to kind of actually see them. And I was like walking, I'm like, is this allowed? And I saw other people with cars and stuff. And mostly I thought it was associated with long haul truckers. But it was, it was basically a convenience store, but a convenience store on steroids. And I'm really interested to hear Larry's thoughts on
Right.
Pilot as a location, as a travel plaza to stop at. I understand you're a professional driver. Is that correct?
Yeah. And I just delivered. I was down there around Charlotte, but so Love's is the one that's our company's got an account at. We don't have that many pilots or flying J's out here in Michigan area. So I haven't even paid attention. But when I first started driving for Schneider, then we were flying J and Pilot were the main two. But out here in Michigan, and that was in '90s, so whatever, 30 years later, now Love's is the, top of the line. The Flying J, the one or two that I come across, they need to be remodeled out here. One in Battle Creek, but people are friendly there. But like you said too, at almost all, I'd have to say 90 plus, they have the car side and they have the truck side. So I get what you're saying when you first walk in, if you don't realize that, but yeah, that's all open. And I'm pretty sure you could even go take a shower. You could sign up for all the stuff. It doesn't ask me on my apps. So, I wondered about that road tripping in a Tesla. I haven't gotten to that point. I'm still, I've been plugging in for 10 years with a Chevy Volt. And so I don't do that much out there checking out the charges. 10 years ago when I got the Volt, I got a 2012. They came out in 2011. And I just fell in love with the charging, but I have 3 plugs at my house because I always usually have one for my son, a Volt for myself, and an extra Volt that I'm repairing because there seems to be this gray area. Everybody's afraid of the electric car technology. So the cars are going really inexpensively with salvage titles and whatnot. So I've had fun with that. But back to there isn't much going on with the Loves. The mostly I've noticed is along the turnpikes, like the I-80. They seem to start, but man, it sounds like what you guys are talking about,
Yeah.
because we're like, what happened? Why did everybody abandon the gas station, you know for EV chargers. Why
Yeah. Why are we different? But one thing I noticed in Knoxville, Tennessee, there's a Flying J that's kind of like their signature location close to the headquarters of Flying J. And there's a lounge for to sit down and, you know, hang out or whatever. And I don't know if that lounge is truckers only or not, because it kind of feels like it is. In other locations, there is a lounge, but it's kind of like attached to the rest of the convenience store, and anyone seems to be able to walk just in. So I don't know if those lounges are just for professional drivers or not, but I'm thinking they are.
You know, again, I think the public would be the one taking the chance, because the average truckers they're pretty scary characters, you know? And so it would be more to protect the public than it is that you're invading on trucker. However,
two
some of the
different pools of
some of the
population, I
meathead
guess.
truckers might, yeah, man, I'm telling you, I kind of, it's kind of scary. I don't know where these guys come from, but so
The chemical industry
That's-
job where I used to work, we used to get truckers coming in doing deliveries, and you weren't ever sure when stuff was going to show up. And doing projects, we were always waiting for vessels and heat exchangers and things like that. And I remember one of the guys saying on the that would receive the deliveries, he said, "Truckers are the last lone cowboys, right? They do whatever the hell they want. They'll show up when they want." You know, and back when I worked for Air Products and Chemicals, it was air separation. These guys would show up, get their oxygen truck filled up, and they'd be smoking next to the oxygen tank. And I'm thinking, dude, if something catches fire, there will literally be nothing left of you. So, yeah, I think truckers are a different breed.
And also
For
about
sure.
the Volt, I definitely admire you for being a Volt enthusiast. I could remember being going to work and wanting to trade in my car for it. It just seemed like such an awesome idea to have an electric car for your daily grind and then the extender for road trips. It seemed like genius at work. It really did.
Yep.
I didn't have the financial ability at the time to transition, but had I really would have. So kudos to being a Volt adopter. That was definitely cool tech.
And I had a story similar, kind of like, how you fell into it. I was converting a Cummins Dodge truck to run a vegetable oil. And so everybody was, knew about it. And they are like, "Hey, you need to meet this kid up in Kalamazoo, the big city close to me. He's started this Green Earth, Michigan, and he's getting electric chargers. And he's got 3 brand new Volts, and he needs a driver." And so in circles, he didn't have anybody else that either felt comfortable or wanted to. And so I with him, and I showed up to the Denoyer dealership before Jeff was probably still in high school back then, and got into a brand new Volt. And they were not on my radars, mostly because when I was a kid, my dad's office back in Denver was literally across the street where they were collecting the EV1. And it kind of looked like a probe. I didn't think it was a good looking car. It just looked, and then the fact that they were just cramming them into this thing like junk. I didn't know the story, and now knowing what I know, if I could go back and tell my young Larry self, I would say follow the Koenigsegg. Is it Koenigsegg? One of those hyper hot rod guys as a kid did that with a BMW. He put an electric motor, and then he went to the drag strip and he blew everybody away, and all over, I think, the Europe dragging community. And then he had a guy, right, one of the billionaires from I think oil industry, come up and gave him money to build him, an all out electric race car because of that. And I'm like, man, had I known, I should have been not a Corvette motor. I should have been finding a big electric motor into that little Porsche.
All the fastest cars are electric now. In fact, as I said, I was just at this Hertz place, and there was a guy. We're NASCAR country here. There's some guy who was tied into NASCAR somehow, and he was showing me a video of a drifting car that had just been made by one of the teams out here. Drifting is a little bit of a different racing technique, but it was all electric, and he said it was the fastest drifting car ever made.
Ford has taken that with the Mach-E.
That was it. It was the Mach-E.
Taken the
Mach-E. It was the Mach-E drifter. Yep.
Yeah. It's amazing, man.
Well, the one that I saw back a couple of years ago was this guy that converted a little Datsun, and they called it the White Zombie. And they even made a little video, you know, with a
Oh
guy, and
yeah,
he's
yeah.
some drag race in a GTO, and the guy in the GTO got absolutely hammered. He's like, "What the heck is this thing?" So I'll put a link in the show notes. But it's so much fun. They had so much fun with this thing. You know, the guy's driving around town with this thing that looks like a little Datsun, and he's just absolutely decimating anybody at a stoplight.
Fun
I wanted
stuff.
to loop back a little bit on the EVgo Flying J.
Mhm.
Walter, you and I traded a couple of comments recently. One of the things I was curious about, since I don't have EVgo stations near me, it's typically not worthwhile for me to get one of their rate plans where you pay monthly and you buy down the rate, similar to what you can do with Electrify America. Um, and I thought, well, if I start using these more often, and you know, on your channel, you've kind of laid out, for example, that you know, is it I-40 and I-10? We're starting to get these whole corridors. You know, would it be worthwhile for me to go and get one of these rate plans? But you had mentioned that at these travel centers, those rate plan discounts do not apply. Is that correct?
Yeah, so as the land grab of NEVI funds is getting ready to be unleashed on the United States, the convenience store owners, Pilot, Travel Centers of America, Love's, Circle K, 7-Eleven, down here there's a company called Racetrack, a few others are prepping their plans, and several of them have elected to use existing networks with resale models. Electrify America has what's called America Commercial, which allows a site host to actually purchase and run the hardware themselves and just use Electrify America as the backend. Similarly, EVGo has something called EVGo Extend, which similarly allows the host to purchase the hardware, own the hardware, and then just use EVGo for payment processing and a few other things. And that's what Pilot, when the picture behind you is an EVGo Extend. In fact, if you actually look on the dispenser, it'll say EVGo Extend on it, distinguishing it from the rest of the EVGo network. And Pilot need not honor EVGo participation rates. And EVGo has fluctuating rates associated with the state, which are time of use, kind of complicated to track. There's a table that you have to look at to see what you're going to be charged at any EVGo station. A new trend trying to discourage people from using DC fast chargers during the middle of the day when the grid is most loaded. So that's when the rates are the highest. So the time of use rates do not apply at Pilot Flying J. They're setting their own course, and their course is expensive. They're basically about a nickel more than anywhere else that you'll see, more expensive than the Electrify Americas. And one of two things is going on there, in my opinion. Either they're trying to naively, because they're a new operator, just looking at their costs, and they're like, what should we charge for this? And then they set a price and they don't realize that they're setting it too high. Or they're purposefully setting it high, trying to establish GM exclusivity, because this network has been announced in the most recent press release as having discounts for GM EV owners. So perhaps what we're trying to do is discourage other people from coming to these stations by making the costs artificially inflated. And all the EV owners from GM, the Ultium owners, will get like 30 cents a kilowatt hour or something like that. Me is free, so I'm going there regardless. But even if it was 60 cents and I was paying the high rate, I'd probably still go here, because if I'm on a road trip, which I only go on, a couple times a year, I don't mind spending another $3 or $5 or whatever it is in order to sail through at a great facility like this. They've got attached restaurants, clean restrooms, you mentioned, squeegees for the windshield, and just about everything you possibly want. So I don't mind paying the extra money. But anyway, so yes, if you're an EVGo subscriber, those rates do not apply at Pilot Flying J.
Interesting. Yeah, and it for me it was I believe 55 cents per kilowatt hour at this location,
Okay.
and I think a 99-cent session fee, which those always give me a little bit of heartburn, because sometimes the session doesn't start right and you start over and then you've paid another buck. But anyway, it is what it is.
Was that $5? Was that $5 would be about what you paid extra so that you could have that convenience, Carl?
So it obviously depends on how much you're getting, how many kilowatt hours you're charging. For me, I believe I charged somewhere around 58 to 60 kilowatt hours, so it was about $30. I think it was 28 and change when I did this. So, if it's 20 cents per kilowatt hour more, if you're saying 30 to versus 50 or 25, I don't know, let's say 20, let's say 25 cents difference per kilowatt hour, and it's what did I say, 60 kilowatt hours, so it's an extra $15. Did I get that right? Yeah.
Yeah, but an
Yeah.
EA station is not going to be 30 cents a kilowatt hour. An EA station is
No.
typically going to be about 45.
45 unless you have well, you had mentioned 30 with your plan. I guess
I was
I
just
guess the question
arbitrarily
is,
throwing that.
yeah, I guess the question is what's the starting point?
Hmm.
If you look at Electrify America, for example, their pass system until recently was 48 cents per kilowatt hour, and now they've said, well, depending on location, it's going to be different. And if you had the previously $4 a month plan, now $7 a month pass plus, you
Hmm.
bought that down to 36 cents per kilowatt hour. So you were saving 12 cents.
But
So
you're
I think
still
it's
paying money for the plan.
you're paying money for the plan, so there's a break-even point,
Break
which
even.
is around 33 kilowatt hours. So in
Hmm.
other words, if you're charging more than that on a monthly basis, it's worth it to do it. But the quick answer is I think they said it's about a 25% savings. So if you were paying $20 before for a fill up, now you're paying $15 for the buy down.
And
So
And if I can talk about your experience in the Chicago at the EVGo, as a
mhm,
result of the efforts I've been putting into the Pilot Flying J, I've become familiar with EVGo as a company, and even spoken to some convenience store operators here in Charlotte who have EVGo, who used to have EVGos at their convenience stores and no longer do. Apparently, that first phase was mostly funded by Nissan. And there's still some chargers out there that say Nissan partnership or something along those lines, and they're about 12 years old. Those things are
mhm,
just out of service life, but they're still kind of lying around there. And EVgo went through a couple growth spurts. That first one was with the Nissan Leaf partnership. And that's really where they've been getting their bad name as of late, is those Leaf chargers have just aged out of service life.
yeah,
But these new ones are bleeding edge tech.
right.
And GM is also putting in EVgo chargers in major metropolitan areas called the EVgo Renew program. They've just put in their thousandth charger. I think it was last month or the month before, in partnership with GM. So GM is funding these efforts to some extent. And these EVgo Renew stations are very similar to the Pilot Flying J as far as the quality of the hardware goes. And so EVgo is really coming on now as a very strong nationwide carrier, and with the Pilot partnership, getting ready to have complete coast to coast corridors built out.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. So I guess the message there is look at PlugShare.
That's exciting to
Um,
hear.
yeah, see which ones are rated well. And I think you're right. So when I took my first road trip, I was driving a Nissan Leaf and kind of stumbling along. And in the St. Louis area, there were a couple of EVgo's and they worked, and obviously Chatamo plugs, and then the Chicagoland area. But more often than not, those things were busted. So later, when I tried to go through, and some of those rest stops were just super convenient, and I thought, well, I've got my Tesla now. I'm going to use my Chatamo adapter, and then they weren't working. But I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really need the charge. It was a opportunity charge. So let's hope they do some kind of rip and replace, and update those things. Now, obviously, if they're going to a higher power level, they're going to need new wiring unless they were future proofed. But anyway, that's good to hear.
Carl, I was just curious how, when you come to the station,
Mhm.
you just swiped a credit card. How was that whole process
So I do have an
for you?
EVgo account from years
Okay.
ago. So I just kind of reactivated, update my password, that sort of thing. And from back in the day, I even had an RFID card. So I just made sure all my account information was current. You put a new credit card in there, and when I pulled up to the station, I just used my RFID card and tapped it on the terminal there, and it walked me through it the first time. Having said that, I did monitor what the app was doing because I wanted that Autocharge Plus feature. So that is something where you have to walk through it on the app and say, hey, the next time I charge with, register this vehicle, first of all. So back in the day, I had my Nissan Leaf on it. So now I put my Model Y on there. And I said, yes, I want to register this vehicle on Autocharge Plus. And then I started that particular session using the app. So I believe there are credit card readers, but I didn't want to do that because I wanted to set up that auto charge feature, which again, the first time you do it, you have to do it manually. Subsequent times for vehicles and charging stations that are equipped with that technology, then you literally just plug in and it starts charging. And if you want, you can look at the screen, you can look at your app, all that stuff automatically gets updated. And it's super cool.
Yeah, I've got really spoiled with that feature because now when I go and I plug in, if it's cold out, and even if it's not cold out, if it's hot out, whatever, I just plug in, and I've had 100% success rate with Autocharge Plus. I got 2 vehicles registered, and either vehicle I pull up, I just plug in, and I don't even look at the screen. I just plug in and I hop back in the driver's seat or passenger seat, whatever, and get back into the comfortable environment. And sometimes the handshake will take as long as like 90 seconds or something. Sometimes it goes a little bit faster, but it always works. And nice to not have to swipe an RFID or.
And so that's with the Volvo or the Lyriq, right? Or the
Yes,
two vehicles that you're charging?
Right. Both those are able to do Autocharge Plus with the EVGo network. Correct.
Yeah, probably most of the newer
That's
vehicles are going to
awesome,
have
man.
that technology.
Well, there's also something called 15118, which is a standard for plug-in charge that Electrify America uses. And apparently that doesn't have as much adoption as what EVGo is using. And I'm not sure if they're using 15118 or not for the Autocharge Plus, but I don't think so because the pool of cars between the two networks, Electrify America and EVGo, seems to be different. Like GM is Autocharge with EA, but I'm sorry, with EVGo, but not with EA. And there's some cars that work with EA, and EA has published that that's the standard they're following. The SA 15118 is the standard. So I think there's a little bit of distinction between those two.
Okay, so we have some room to grow in terms of standardization. We still have a VHS beta type thing.
Yeah, apparently, yeah, I think so.
And
anyway,
then Carl, could you have plugged your motorcycle in at the same time?
Not at this location.
Was there?
Yeah, so my motorcycle cannot accept DC fast charging. The 2022 Zero SRS only has level 2 charging available. It does peak at 12, 13 kilowatts, so it's pretty good for the size battery it has. Now, if there were another level 2 station, another level 2, dispenser there somewhere, I could literally do that. Also, if that motorcycle was an Energica motorcycle that has the DC fast charging, absolutely. I could pull another cable out, charge the motorcycle at the same time.
So you would have used the handle on the opposite side there? Or
Well,
was
actually,
there
if you're looking at the video version, there's another dispenser right here. So on that same, and you can use both at the same time. So the idea is, what you can't see here is there's another track here on the other side of the column, so a car can pull in on the outside, or vehicle. So as long as
it works, you could dispense 175 per handle if both are in use, or 350 if only one is in use.
Yeah. So if there's nobody there and
and
you don't mind, there's another set of chargers over here. So I could have parked right in the middle and, done 2 charging sessions at the same time.
That's what I was just wondering.
Yeah. And I know that there are some trailers out there now that have batteries included. I don't know if you've seen some of those prototypes.
Yes.
Where the idea is that you have a battery that's inside that trailer that actually helps propel that trailer itself, so that the truck that is pulling it is not pulling as much of the weight. So anyway, there's a way that you could essentially do 2 sessions, which, I mean, it's kind of like a gas station where, you put gas in your truck and at the same time you fill up your ATV that's on the trailer.
Yeah, and I keep hearing the answer is no, but I really question. I was standing outside the Canopy location in Knoxville, Tennessee, with the Pilot Flying J Ultium branded chargers underneath that canopy with pull-through parking. And I just noticed I was surrounded by trucks. And I just wonder how long it's going to be before these Pilot Flying J locations are servicing electric trucks, because it kind of looks like that's what these things are getting built for. I don't know about Tesla semis, but the Amazon fleet has basically been converted at this point. And these delivery vehicles, which generally end up back at a depot at night, have places to charge. But eventually, I think we're going to start seeing bleeding over into more longer routes. And these Pilot Flying J's are likely going to be servicing trucks in the not too distant future, if I had to guess. Because
So
you have to look like 10 years in the
s-
future at what the future holds. And I think they're looking in the same duration of time that, what's this going to look like 10 years from now? And they're building for that.
So you're saying you saw electric trucks around you? What, like,
No,
so
they were all internal combustion,
trucks
but it
mean
just,
more like the Amazon van?
well, they were all gas
Oh,
internal combustion, but it just got me thinking, how
okay,
long
okay.
is it going to be before these
Yeah.
Pilot Flying J's are servicing trucks? And they're definitely built for them because they got the pull through and the canopies, which, it's basically exactly the same. They've got the canopy for the gas, the canopy for the diesel, and now they got the canopy for the electric, and all of them are pull through. And it just seems like that's what they're gearing up for. And everyone tells me, no, that's probably not what it is. This is just automobiles, but I don't know. It kind of looks like they're looking out for the long game here.
Yeah, that
I'm
makes sense.
hoping, that's why I got the Tesla Semi in the back, just kind of like dreaming, to the day that I can have single pedal driving, in this 80,000 pound rig. And I'm not right now I got a 19 Kenworth, and so it's an automatic, but I still up and down, coming up from Virginia, or going through that mountain range. So I'm having to get the engine brake all the way up, and then if I don't get the engine brake off as I'm at the bottom, then the truck just stays at let's say 60. But if I don't hit that hill going at least, I try to roll up to 70, 75, and then I can get up to the other side, the top of the other hill. Usually, the RPMs are up high enough, I might be able to creep up there at least right around the 50. But if I don't hit that 60 or faster, then I'm down 30, 34 miles an hour climbing up that hill. But anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
there's a
so
place in here in North Carolina called the Saluda Gap, which is notorious for truckers going about 35 miles an hour trying to get up. And as you say, it would be a great use for an electric powertrain in order to come back down and recoup that.
Yeah.
And even just go up the hill at a
And
decent
even go
speed.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, supposedly the Tesla can go right up fully loaded, at the 65 miles an hour, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and then if these Pilot Flying J's get built out, if
that's
they need to be
exciting. But
charged, they
the
just
region,
pull into one of these
Yeah.
pull-through spots and charge back up. You can go into the Denny's and get yourself a meal while your truck charges, and off you go. That just kind of feels like what it's being built for.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they might have to bump up the power level
hope
as
you're
that
right, man.
technology
That
catches
would be
up,
great.
right? So
Well, they are 350, man. That's no joke. 350,
Yeah.
although it's a big battery.
Yep.
You eat a burger, get a milkshake, go to the bathroom, spend an hour at 350. You're burning through a lot of kilowatts, and the C rate on a Tesla Semi has got to be pretty ferocious. So they're going to suck all that 350 they need.
And I'm never in and out of there in under an hour. By the time you clean the windows, do a walk around, check some tires, you thud the tires, one doesn't sound right, then you go back and get your gauge, you check the pressure, but it's always an hour. And then, so that would be no problem. You hear people, I can fuel up. But yeah, if you sat there and clocked, I'm thinking 90% of guys are there for an hour easy. It just, you pull in, you fill up, $1,000 worth of fuel, clean the windows, and then you pull it out of the island. Someone else can start fueling. And then that's when I'll go around and do some more inspections and checking the load, and then go to the bathroom, get in line to get some food,
Yep. 90 minutes gone.
That's interesting because I never thought about that use case because I'm not a trucker. So that's great insight.
Yeah. It's exciting, man. I'm looking forward to it. And then the vibration, like that Kenworth, it's a 2019. It's got, just over 500,000 miles. And it just, if that motor, luckily it's got backup heat, so I don't have to have it running to keep it warm. Because it just shakes that whole thing, even though the truck, the cab, it's a nice air ride cab and air ride suspension, disc brakes. But even then, man, the regen braking and no vibration, just rattling that thing 24/7. So I'm excited.
So Walter, tell us what's next for the Network Architect channel.
Yeah, lots of things have been going on. I have been assessing what content I want to do, and the Pilot Flying J for me is a personal interest that I do not mind doing updates on, because I'm basically doing it for my own interest. And I just when I see updates, I create a new video, and it seems to be a lot of excitement associated with this project build out. I was recently having a conversation with a couple other YouTubers, and apparently, if they complete this build out with the 200 locations that the last press release indicated that they would, it will be the fastest coast to coast DC fast charger build in history, bar none, including Tesla, including Electrify America's first corridor build. And there's an associated company called Owl E-Mobility, which Owl apparently does convenience store builds, and the E-Mobility is the one doing the DC fast charger implementations. They completed one in London, Ohio in 6 weeks, and they don't work in serial. They work in parallel, subcontracting out. So this team, as long as they are funded, will get the job done. And so conceivably this time next year, we'll be looking at a coast to coast network built out in record time.
Wow. Yeah, that'll be fun to watch. So yeah, so those interested in that, please subscribe to Walter's channel, and because he does a nice job, outlining what's new and the whole overview. So I'm always looking forward to your videos.
And I mentioned I just picked up a Tesla Model 3 for a business trip, and you might say, why don't you take your own car? And the reason is just because it costs less for my company, because if I expense the miles for the distance that I'm covering, it would be more expensive than if I rented a car. The Model 3 is $200 a week, and fast charging is pretty inexpensive also. And I'll be stopping at about 15 Pilot Flying J's along my route. I'll be doing 95 to I-10 in Jacksonville, and then Jacksonville I-10 cutting across to Biloxi, and then I'll take 20 up towards Birmingham and Atlanta. And all in all, I'll be passing by about 15. So we'll have an update here shortly on those locations, what percentage of them are built out. I'm also going to stop at one or two Buc-ee's, because Mercedes-Benz recently announced that they're going to be putting in large DC fast charger implementations at 30 Buc-ee's throughout the Southeast. So I don't know if anyone's been to Buc-ee's. You guys probably don't know what Buc-ee's is.
I was at one and I was blown away. They had a Tesla supercharger there. It's unbelievable.
It's amazing. That place is one of the best places to get rid of all the money in your wallet, because every time I go in there, I come out with no money. Yeah, that's right. But I get a really big Rice Krispie treat.
Yeah, I mean,
and then we got Wally's.
Oh, okay.
Wally's in Chicago, right? Yeah. So,
but
is that a Midwest thing? I'm not sure.
I think one of the things that they do is kind of like this design of the store, like a grocery store. The eggs and the milk are always in the back of the store, and now they stick the liquor and all the other high markup stuff in the way so that you're going to grab that stuff. That's what I feel like Buc-ee's is. Right?
Yeah, well, they
routes your kids past all this stuff.
Really good barbecue sandwiches that are made from slow cooked brisket that is just beautiful. They're so good, and they're not too expensive either. And then they got desserts and drinks. One thing they don't have is anywhere to sit down. I actually asked someone, where do I sit down? They're like,
not part of the design, huh?
Nope. Bye.
Yeah. Which is interesting, because if you look at like some of the Tesla superchargers in the lower Midwest, they're all at Hy-Vee stores, and the Hy-Vee. It's a grocery store chain. I think they started in Iowa. I learned about them when I lived in Kansas City. And one of the things that the Hy-Vee stores started doing, particularly along those close to the highway stops, is they put in something called a market grill. And it's basically like a little sit-down restaurant. And you can order off the menu, but you can also get food from inside the store. Like they'll have a walk-up thing with prepared, Chinese food, or, fried chicken, or made to order sandwiches, and you get that stuff and you walk into the market grill, and they're totally cool with that. And if you forgot to, get a drink, the waitresses will get you a soda or a coffee or something like that. And it's just a great way to spend a little bit of time, especially when you're charging, right? Because again, you want that little bit of 30, 45 minutes and you've got your charge, and it's just a pleasant way to do it. Wi-Fi, all that good stuff.
Yeah, there was also an announcement for EVGo Extend, another organization doing the same thing as Pilot Flying J, and I don't know how it's pronounced. It's Meijer or something.
Meijer. Yeah,
Is that how it's pronounced? Meijer?
Meijer. It's
Meijer, yeah.
Yeah, so they're
that's the premier grocery store chain here in Michigan. In
Okay.
fact, I think like 90% of all Tesla superchargers are at Meijer's. And so now that they're going to extend that with EVgo. They have some charge point stations there now, but that was announced also like seems like 2 years ago, and it feels like nothing ever happened. So maybe
Well,
it's another
there's
one of those things that they're prepping in the background, and all of a sudden, boom, they're going to get rolled out.
Yeah, I think there might be Navy Fund or something. I'm not sure, but they just announced 24 locations awarded the EVgo Extend in the state of Ohio only. So not Michigan, but just
I
in
think
Ohio.
Ohio
currently.
is ahead with the Nevi.
Okay.
There's a little bit of stuff that's happened
No,
here
but
in Michigan.
this was
Um,
Meijer in
yeah,
Ohio.
yeah.
24 locations
I
apparently
mean,
are
their
getting
headquarters
EVgo
is
Extend.
right here in Grand Rapids, but
Okay.
they're all over the upper Midwest, and there
Yeah.
are really nice stores.
And then right, we got to remember Michigan is the big three, right? So they probably get a lot more pushback on things.
Mm-hmm. Before, so if I can say,
yeah.
it's been a tremendous honor. You gentlemen have been an inspiration for me since I've started watching your videos. Both you guys are early adopters, and I admire greatly. It's been a privilege to actually have this conversation with you, and much appreciated for the content that you guys create.
Thank you, and I feel the same about you.
Thanks.
Your voice is so calm. I'm like when I'm done watching your videos, it's like, man, I just feel really good right now. Right, I'm in a good place. So I appreciate that.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, we should do this again, and yeah, all the best on your channel. Obviously,
Yeah,
I'm gonna keep watching and follow that. So I guess until we talk again, and thanks for our listeners. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
If you enjoyed or learned from this episode of Zero E Michigan, please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. Visit our YouTube channel for other related videos at youtube.com/@0E-Michigan.